Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches around the world, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy, Road Dogg, with, of course, the man, the myth, the 4'3" legend, Karl Bryan. Welcome back, Sheets.
Road Dogg, how goes it?
Sorry, 4'6" on skates. There it is.
There we go.
There it is.
Thank you. Thank you for clearing that up. I was concerned. How's it going, my man? What's going on, Road Dogg? We just had a pretty good little pre-show, Shoots. Everybody, they're not in the pre-show.
You are fired up. I'm not sure what you're drinking this morning, how many Red Bulls you are in, but you are on absolute fire. You want to just sort of, so again, folks, like if you're not part of the pre-show, holy smokes, that was some pure magic right there. Do you want to just do a quick recap of what we just sort of talked about? Because I think that is of huge value to anybody that's looking to get some clients fast.
Opened up Keith. He's got a background in publishing. Just kind of said what kind of publishing. He's talking about, old school newspaper publishing, and he's got, I don't know, long, couple decades, it sounded like, of experience in publishing. And just kind of, and I said, okay, so if you own the local, and then we went deep because I wanted everybody to hear this, right? But it's like, so Keith, if you own the local newspaper, tell me, how do you make money? Newspaper advertising. Okay, we agreed on that. And then I said, how much is an ad in the newspaper? And he's like, like 300, whatever he said. It was under 1,000, right? Like call it 500. And I said, well, if I own the local newspaper, here's what I would do. I would give because if your unit of sale is 500, that, you know what I mean? Like your opportunity to scale, you're going to have a heck of a time. You got to get a high unit of sale, right? Like, so the question is, what do I buy from you for 10 grand? The newspaper's not going to have an answer. And if they do, it's probably not going to be a great one. And when I say, what do I buy from you for 10 grand? We're not looking for like a $10,000 unit of sale with $8,000 of hard costs, right? That's like a $2,000 profit margin. We want at least a 50% profit margin or above. And like, that's why a good reason to become a consultant is that you can charge 1, 2, 3 grand a month, 12, 24, 36 grand a year. You have 80% profit margins. That's the magic. If you got 20 clients at 2 grand a month, it's 480 grand. That's an amazing life by pretty much anybody's standard, right? So anyways, I said, so here's what I would do if I own the local newspaper. And there are lots of local newspapers. There's lots of local coupon books. Of course, they've got, a digital strategy, or if they don't, they're really old school and probably going to be out of business soon. But there's lots of local newspapers trying to sell ads. And I just said, if I was the local newspaper, I would do the ads for free. I would then walk them into a consultation. Like we've got our software called Jumpstart 12, the initial part of it, where we find anybody 100 grand, 45 minutes without spending $1 on marketing or advertising. A lot of the people that take the free ad will take the Jumpstart 12 consultation, which would lead to a $12,000, $24,000, $36,000 consulting sale with 80% margins. And you see, the psychology of it is that lots of people will take free ads and not spend 5 cents. And for the average business owner, that throws them off. And it's ridiculous, right? Like little company named Facebook, we all might have heard of. 0.0000001% of the population or the users on Facebook spend $1 with them. Apparently, it's working out pretty good, right? And then LinkedIn, same thing, right? They don't if LinkedIn charge, it's the penny gap. We talked about that probably a year ago now. But the penny gap, if YouTube charged you 1 penny, if Google charged you 1 penny, if Facebook charged you 1 penny, if Airbnb, or not so much, so LinkedIn charged you 1 penny, we wouldn't be talking about them as the examples that they are, right? So basically, and then they're really data plays that I don't think I'm going to go down that rabbit hole, but no doubt, just think of how much Facebook knows about you. Think of how much LinkedIn knows about you. And then maybe think about what that might mean for you, your business coaching, your client's business. Like we almost hired a data scientist some time ago. In fact, looks like we just hired him today in negotiations a little bit. And just the guy's job is going to be just to, with our software, we're compiling an enormous amount of data. And the thing is that we've got the data, but data's not worth anything if you're not doing something with it. So forget that rabbit hole. The local newspaper data could be names, phone numbers, email addresses, and a person to contact with a free ad. If you have 100 ads or 1,000 ads instead of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 ads in your newspaper, are you building a better platform? And one of the big things is that when you get a free ad, you also are going to go and watch, you're going to go check out your ad. Well, now you got readership. So anyways, we were just kind of talking about that. We went on a little bit, but I think that there's a lot of power in that. The way that I got there is I said, what if I would ask the guy who owns the newspaper, what do I buy from you for 10 grand? And there'd be a really good chance that he wouldn't have an answer. And I've got a story where, like, way back in 2005, my first ever business coach made 330 grand in his first 6 months with me, not in 12 months, but 6 months. And a big part of how we did that is we took networking, made it predominantly free, poured gasoline on his lead gen, made the environment super entertaining as opposed to static. And you know what I mean? Like, telling jokes, loud music, hit music, that kind of thing. And yeah, instead of selling an $800 12-month membership to networking, started selling a $10,000 consulting package with 80% margins. And bingo, bango, bongo. And the year prior, he made about 100 grand. The year prior, he made 330 grand in his first 6 months with me by doing business coaching with a high unit of sale. I asked him, what do I buy from you for 10 grand? He didn't have an answer. He was selling an $800 membership, the exact same example that we just went through with Keith with the publishing company. So we went a little deeper than that, Road Dog, but the premise of it, sum it up, if I own the local newspaper, okay, with 1,000,000% certainty, I'd be giving the ads away for free. I would be crushing the competition. I'd be pouring gasoline on my lead gen because it'd be so much easier to get people in. I'd be referring to that as data, business owners, email addresses, contacts, names, their ad on my digital magazine or my digital newspaper would then be data. And I would be turning those people into high-end consulting clients for 12, 24, 36 grand with 80% margin. And frankly, I would crush the local competition if I did it. And I would do that with a lot of if I owned a promotional company, I would be advertising all over Facebook, all over Instagram, all over the internet, giving away free golf balls to business owners. And they'd be putting up their hand. And then I would say, hey, what do you want to put on the golf balls? Their answer would be probably pretty lame if they're 98% of the business owners that I've met. And then I would take that poor copy and I would turn it into a consultation, which I would turn into, I would cut their arm. You've ever heard me talk about that? I don't offer Band-Aids without cut arms. So the Jumpstart 12, what it does is it cuts their arm. So they see all this unrealized profit and all this money they're leaving on the table. So I don't offer my consulting before I cut their arm. And then my consulting is the Band-Aid, and they've got blood running down their arm, and they say thank you instead of what the hell is this Band-Aid for? So you need a process. I wouldn't just give away golf balls without a process, but that would be the process. And importantly, Road Dog, the psychology is that not everybody needs to spend money with me. That's okay. I do a daily, no doubt if you're listening to this, you probably get my daily email. 100,000 people get that a day. Not 5 cents. Nobody's paying 5 cents for those emails, and they take an enormous amount of time, and they're challenging to write. I can assure you, especially the jokes. Anyway, so and that's okay. At no time am I going to go to the 100,000 people getting my email and say, hey, the penny gap. I'm not going to go and say, hey, pay 1 penny here to continue to get my email. Which, by the way, I might create a paid version at some stage, but that wouldn't disrupt the free version. So, Road Dog, what do you think? That's kind of what we went over, correct? What do you think?
It is, and that's just when I piped in and I just said, imagine now just, if you're doing live events, because shocker, you and I are talking live events. Anybody doing a live event, just go skimming through all your local magazines and newspapers and everything else, see who is already currently advertising, and then just invite them to your event, right? Just kind of go, hey, I'm doing an event, and we're going to talk about, even a simple question of, hey, are you getting everything that you wanted out of the ads that you're running? Well, I'm
Yep.
hosting an event that, will probably actually help you convert a lot more and help you write more compelling ads. It's completely free. I've got room for 10 people. Are you in? Right? Like,
Yep.
of course they're going to say they're in. Like, it's just such an easy conversation to have. And I think it takes a
Especially if you
lot of the
call with
pressure
some
away.
mojo, but Road Dog, you say that with some mojo and from experience, and you know what kind of value they're going to get if they come, and that do that exactly without the mojo, and you're getting hung up on. Do that with the mojo, and watch what happens. Right? It just works.
Love it. I love Mojo, but like it just makes me feel very Austin Powers. Hey, and by the way, you know what? If the jokes take as long as they do, you got a lot of work ahead of you, Shoots. Like, not gonna lie, some of your jokes are wow. Speaking of jokes, first question rolled in, and it talks about being different and standing out, and I thought, holy crap, that's Karl Bryan. Um, like it's hilarious. Like if you want to, first off, for Carlos to stand out, he's got to stand up on a chair. But for being different, boy oh boy, this is amazing. This is the most perfect question I've ever read. That I'm like, this has to be asked. So there you go. How's that for a setup for this question? By the way,
Like
you like this?
it's monumental. I don't know the question. What is it?
Oh, I'm not even there yet. I'm still setting the stage for this question.
Okay.
And speaking of setting the
That's good.
stage, if you ever want to see Carl being different, watch him dance. It's like watching a guy have a stroke on the dance floor. It is something special.
No, pretend like you're
Anywho,
not impressed, Road Dog.
buddy, listen, we're all very impressed by your skills and your moves. All I hope is that you were a lot smoother when you picked up your wife, because holy smokes, thank God you're not single. All right. You talk about being different and standing out. Do you have, oh my God, do you have a formula or process for helping clients, thank God clients, for helping clients achieve this?
Okay.
This is not a dating question. This is not dating 101 with Karl Bryan, thank God, because that would go a whole different direction. But for clients, it's a huge question, man. Like being different and standing out, because everybody does a lot of the same stuff, right? No matter where you look, be it, we just talked advertising. 9 out of 10 ads look exactly the same.
Yeah.
So, what do you say to that? Do you have a formula or process
I,
for clients standing out?
yeah. Actually, before I want to make, there's something on my mind. I want to just, okay. So earlier you just mentioned about inviting people to the live events and then going,
Yes.
you ran an ad. So for that reason, I'm going to invite you. So then what we also talked about on the pre-show, but I just think that it's got some value here. It was the reason frame, right? So you were nominated for an award. That's the reason I'm inviting you. You won the award. That's the reason why I'm inviting you. You're a member of the chamber. That's the reason I'm inviting you. You were referred by a friend. That's the reason. So you need a reason, right? If there's a long lineup of people and they're all waiting for a drink of water, you go to the front and you just butt in. You're probably going to get asked, you know what I mean? Like pushed away and, hey, shoots to the back of the line, stop it, right? But you give a reason, I've got diabetes. Somebody, oh yeah, no worries. So I didn't realize that. Go for it, right? So, anyways, the reason frame is important. So if you're looking to, live event mastery, the program that we have, filled over 400 local live events personally, it's literally step by step, laid out, cookie cutter to do all of that. So, anyways, just the reason frame.
Hang on. You talked about the reason frame. It's also, other people call it the because frame, right? I've heard
Okay,
that
there we go.
before.
Nice.
It doesn't
Yeah,
have to be anything sexy. Like
nope.
I think that's the point that we need to make here, Carl, is it doesn't. Why? Because guess what do we always say to our kids? Hey, why do I have to clean my room? Because I said so. That's why.
Yep.
Right? Like it's pretty straightforward. So we've been hearing this because frame our entire lives. So as soon as you hear because, hey, can I just get ahead of you for, I just need a drink of water? Why? Because dude, I'm super thirsty.
There we go.
9 times out of 10, they're gonna be like, okay.
Yep.
Because we're
They are.
conditioned.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so yeah, good. Yeah, there you go. So reason frame, because frame, boom. So anywho, different and standing out. Okay, so I've been thinking about something for the last little bit. Don't know if this is going to be the best answer, but like the correlation between supply and demand, like supply demand, hopefully you probably know this, right? But it's literally the foundation of modern day economics, right? And it, more importantly than that, and what I want to kind of hit home, what I want to drop and for you to pick up is it single-handedly can drive price, right? So part of the inspiration of that, I enrolled in a course recently, like pretty damn expensive, and it was very, very limited in supply. And then, there's an application and this, that, and the other, and I'm filling this out, and I'm in the back of my mind, I'm being like, is this happening? You know what I mean? But like, I got to tell you that I'm just sat there and I answered the questions and I did it enthusiastically. Whipped them my credit card number to do, and I just supply versus demand. This thing was, there was a very limited, um, very limited amount of supply, right? So, and nothing about limiting supply as in only a certain amount available, I think will come naturally to the average business owner, the average coach for sure, because we're so giving by nature. Otherwise, you wouldn't become a coach, but the average business owner as well. It's a bit like what I was talking about earlier, like giving things away for free. It's psychology, right? And again, little company called Facebook doing pretty good. They don't charge hardly anybody, right? And it's working out. Your client doesn't need to monetize every single person that they do business with, right? So it's like a muscle that I'd encourage you to kind of really think about and exercise, and you will get stronger, you will get better, and it will start to come a little bit more naturally. And it's like Road Dog. I don't know if it was the last few weeks we talked about the magic of group coaching, right? And most people don't realize part of the magic of group coaching is that it elevates the demand, and maybe I'll say the perceived value, the actual value for your one-to-one, right? So translation, you can charge 10 times more for your one-to-one coaching and get it when you have a successful group that they're participating in, right? So monster mistake coaches make is being, quote unquote, too available, right? And trying to be Peter Pan, the do-gooder, just solving everybody's problems and doing it totally on demand. There's a place for this, and it can be there's a place for helping everybody and delivering value, because obviously that needs to be the foundation, right? But it's a monster mistake to make it the foundation of what you do and kind of put yourself out there as Mr. and Mrs. readily available, right? So like your lack of supply is part of how you separate yourself, and it makes you more attractive. It makes people really, want to kind of walk over glass to get at you. So I'd encourage anybody serious about being the best business coach they can be to seriously think about it, maybe play with it, experiment with it, as in supply and demand, both for yourself and of course with your coaching clients. Because again, in sum, put in a sentence, supply and demand can single-handedly drive price in a positive and successful way. So yeah, Road Dog, I'm gonna say supply and demand, and there's something top of mind, and I think it might suit there. I'm not sure that's exactly what we were looking for, but that's what I'm gonna say.
Well, that's definitely not what I was thinking you were going to say. So how about that? So can you give some examples of like limited supply used successfully if we're going to go down this path? Like, let's just make it a rabbit hole while we're here. Just for fun.
This is Road Dog's fault, folks. There you go.
Whoa. I will not. There needs to be a disclaimer, right? Where it's like, Road Dog will not be held accountable for any rabbit holes that are incurred.
You heard it here first, BitChutes. Okay, so Ferrari, look, they're not concerned with the price tag hanging off their cars, right? Harley Davidson, not worried about the, whatever price they want to put on the bike is kind of what they put on the bike. Like Harley Davidson could easily be beaten on price, not to mention quality, by the way, like by less expensive, foreign brands. Like there's really quality brands out there, right? But the ideal client has enough money, and remember, like people afford things that they want to pay the high end price. So much so, in fact, differently, Harley Davidson customers prefer to pay more because they don't want just anyone to have one. You really got to think about that, right? They want to know that the others, they want to sacrifice, and they want to know that their the other guys driving the Harleys and waking everybody up at 10 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday. Remember, Harley Davidson makes an accountant a bad boy and the guy to be feared on Saturday and Sunday as he rides down the street, right? And all the kids look, and everybody's looking at him driving by, right? That's what they made out of it, right? And so to get to the point, Harley, they've always been really good at using limited supply on their bike And then that's what creates a demand and a waiting list. Like walk into a Harley store tomorrow and try to buy the latest and greatest bike that comes out this year as you listen to this, right? And I'll just tell you, welcome to a waiting list, and you're going to leave a non-refundable deposit, and you're going to wait the end. And it's that bike is not coming anytime soon. It could be 12 months. When people exercise, like when people experience this for the first time, it totally blows them away, right? And it's same with Porsche and Ferrari and Lamborghinis and similar brands like that. And therefore, the only people who own Harley are those that are totally dedicated and devoted to the brand. And again, it's people that have sacrificed, and they haven't it's not just money, but it's also time. And time is a sacrifice, right? So like, you waited. Said, and by the way, then go try, buy, used to know, I don't know, like an early 19, I think it's actually like a 1915 is actually like a collector's edition, but try to go buy an early 1900 11F Harley, right? You fall off your chair when you see it. It looks like a really average looking bicycle. And the price is that of, you'd buy a Lamborghini or Ferrari for it, right? Like a popular Harley is an appreciating asset. A popular Ferrari is an appreciating asset. A popular Harley or Porsche is an appreciating asset, right? I drove a Ferrari. I think we've talked about this before, but I drove a Ferrari for 10 years, made a handsome profit when I sold it. So I drove it for a decade, and then I sold it 10 years later for more than I actually bought it for. Kind of like getting paid to drive it, which not quite, because to service these things cost you a fortune, but you get the idea, right? Bottom line is that brands like that, if they're doing it properly, they're appreciating assets, right? And by the way, for the business coaches listening, you need to learn your craft first and be, quote unquote, excellent at business coaching before you go do this, or what you're going to do is screw it up for everybody else. And a lot of folks, like really good, big part of what we do, like, that silver tongue sales guy, they get started with us and they make 300 grand in short, sharp, quickly. But the problem is then they get sick of, it's the coaching that's really boring, and the selling and eating what you kill is really exciting. So you got to be able to follow through. So before you go and take this advice and use this supply and demand at a high level in the business coaching world, please make sure that you're going to be unbelievable at business coaching. You're always going to follow through. And if you're not that guy that's going to follow through, hire somebody highly analytical, like an accountant type, or, somebody highly analytical that can clean up the messes behind you and do the coaching and show up and, do the accountability, right? So thinking about that. But I tell you, once you hit an elite level, being the least expensive coach is going to be ridiculous. Some business owners, this road dog, right? They just want to pay more, and that's never going to change. And by the way, those that pay more, like big time for their coach, they refer Tony Robbins' clients refer him at twice the rate. No, 50 times the rate that the local business coach charging $1,000 a month gets referred to by his clients, right? Russell Brunson's got $1 million a year coaching program. Tony Robbins, he always talks about it's $1 million a year. You got to go in the waiting list, and Peter Tudor Jones has paid him $1 million a year plus upside for literally decades. My most expensive coaching program way back when, 750 grand. I created from scratch, created the documentation, sat with the lawyers, sold it on my lonesome, closed it on my lonesome, did the whole thing. And I've sold many coaching programs for 100 to 500 grand. And forget about me. That's what I'm trying to. Don't think for a second that you can't go create a really, really high-end coaching program and get the money, but it's going to need to be, sold in a, an important strategic way. And you got to make sure, if you're going to accept $100,000 from a business owner, that you bloody deliver. Otherwise, you're making the mess of our industry. So don't do that. But so I just say, look, Harley Davidson and that, these guys are tattoo worthy. Like, how's that? Like, people get Harley Davidson tattoos. And you see people like Apple tattoos, Ferrari tattoos, the Olympic rings, which is absolutely a brand, the American flag, America, the American flag is probably the number one brand in the world, right? There's maybe Playboy, not so much anymore, but, the Playboy bunny. I'm sure one day it'll make a comeback, but that's never changed over, decades and decades. Maybe to a lesser extent, Nike, Polo, Ralph Lauren, Lacoste, they have pretty cool brands that I think probably somebody would go and put on their shoulder. or whatever. Maybe not. Bugs Bunny, again, brand. Lots of, the Disney characters. It's not so much Disney, but it's the Disney characters. Also think about that. Um, so, but pretty cool goal. You know what I mean? If you set out to, have somebody, get your tattoo, or sorry, your brand tattooed on their shoulder, that's pretty cool. So that's like successful marketing times 10. So that, I don't know, that's, so Road Dog, but there's some examples, like Harley Davidson, like the big brands, they limit supply in a very hard and real way. It's the foundation of their whole sales process is that their stuff's not available, right? And it therefore holds its value on the open market, big time. So that's what I got, Shoots. What do you think?
Well, I'm just speaking of tattoos. How did the Leafs tattoo work out for you in your lower back? Is that good? You got the tramp stamp, the Leafs on your lower back. You're good. That worked out good for you. Listen,
if they don't get out in the first round, they'll timestamp this. But oh god, they're a hard team to cheer for. I love them so much, but oh gosh, painful.
I'm just asking about your lower back tattoo. I didn't have to go into the first round, but like I'm. Right, like it's probably just as painful getting a tattoo as it is watching a Leafs game. But anywho, listen. So I hate to do this to you because sometimes you sort of lose track. So the original question asked in regards to a framework and how to get there. So remember that was the actual original question. So I like the loops you've done here. But is there an actual framework to get there? Let's go back to that original question.
Okay. Nice job, Road Dog. Nice job. Look, I think I'd start I don't know. I'd start with a question like, how can I help my high-end coaching client become worth talking about? Is that, we're here talk like I just talked about Porsche. I talked about Nike, Polo Ralph Lauren, Harley Davidson, Apple, etc. Like trying to be me too or me better are just not going to get it done anymore. Something maybe it's what we talked about earlier with the publishing company when the newspaper starts giving away free ads and giving away free events and educating their business owners, using some of our tools and some of our online business academy tools and using, finding people 100 grand in 45 minutes without spending $1 on marketing or advertising. I don't know. Is that something the average newspaper, the average radio station, the average coupon book, the average online directory, the average digital marketer is doing? And the answer is probably not. Right. So again, what are others charging for that you could do for free? But I think so. Like, how do you get your client to be worth talking about? Like, the fastest, the most expensive, which is kind of where I've been playing here the last little bit. The first, the last. Like, we invented business coaching software. Who else is going to be able to say that? Right? Be the last, the most difficult, the easiest. Being unique. So what are you? The most unique? You're the only, you're totally standalone. Maybe you're the smallest, maybe you're the biggest. I know the most efficient, again, different, depends on the types of spaces that you're, when I say spaces, but I mean like categories and industries. Maybe you're the simplest, you're the hardest. One of the things we talk about all the time internally is just making our software simple. It's really, really easy. Well, it'd be really easy for us to create really complicated software, but we're always just 80-20, 80-20, 80-20. How do we get 80% of the value with 20% of the changes? How do we get 80% of the value of what we just talked about with 20% of the, the code and whatnot? Again, in the interest of making it easier for our client, making it the best, the cheapest. Be careful with that one for sure. Maybe you're the slowest. Again, Ferrari do not make cars quickly. They make them very slowly, and then there's a level of perceived value. Like they promote that. Like when I say that, you might think, "Gee, the slowest. Like who the heck would ever promote that?" Well, again, high end Harley Davidson. They're not. They're making these things. And they're stamping them as in. You got car number 1 of 400, 2 of 400. Maybe you're the newest. That makes people love new. Maybe you're the oldest. Maybe most established. Think of McDonald's. Over a billion burgers sold, something like that. I think the sign said back in the day, you're the most popular, you're the least popular. By being the least popular, that means you get more one-to-one attention. The safest, I don't know, most dangerous. Remember, like no fear clothing. That's what I'm thinking. Like, it was all about. I mean, I love that stuff, right? And it was all about just living. If you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space or something to that effect. The most dangerous, the most edgy. That, lots of guys in our world, they do that successfully, where they're super edgy, and that's just their thing, right? I don't know. That should be enough to get the hamsters running on the marketing wheel. Bottom line, don't be all like help your client pick one, and have your client, own that space in the mind of local consumers, right? And so as I say that, I'm kind of thinking, yeah, but they're like I'm throwing out all these big names like Harley, and can my local business owner do that? And the answer is absolutely. But what will stop them, what will stop you, is fear, right? Like Avis is number two. We try harder. Tom's 1-for-1 strategy, like they give a child in need a pair of shoes for every pair that you buy, right? In the words of Seth Godin, good ideas spread. Think of some good ideas. Think of some, and maybe another way of wording that should be find some problems worth solving, and people will start talking about that. So, in sum, let's just make sure, as far as limited supply for coaches go, if you're trying to sell coaching and consulting and not using limited supply in some way, I think you're making a pretty reasonable size mistake. When you use limited supply properly, you've got the force of what FOMO, fear of missing out, right? Like you have that working in your favor, and it's one of the biggest draws. The world is not driven by greed. The world is driven by envy. That's not me speaking. That's Warren Buffett, and I think Charlie Munger as well, by the way. But that's the two of the most richest and most successful guys, and they've done it in a very boring and methodical and strategic way. Like you could actually follow Elon Musk. He's alien just trying to get home. He might be a little bit difficult of a guy to try and emulate and get your head around. Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, I mean, they're incredibly smart guys, but they're just strategic and they're slow moving. And they give read all the letters to shareholders and the books written about them, and the books out there on what is the University of Warren Buffett or something to that effect. It's just unbelievable the content you can get from that. Right. And some coaches are thinking, like it's like scarcity or like supply, like it's an unethical sales tactic. Right. Well, you can only, if you are a 1-to-1 business coach, you can only handle about 15 high-end coaching clients. Let's assume that's the number. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 12, maybe it's 23. Let's just assume it's 15. Well, if you could only handle 15 high-end business coaching client, guess what? You've got scarcity. You've got limited supply. So go and bloody tell somebody. Don't keep it a secret. Right. And, not to mention, Road Dog, I think that by limiting supply, this will give a business coach that's maybe lacking a little bit of confidence. Because remember, if you can sell, you can't coach. And if you can coach, you can't sell. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not too far off, where the really, really good coaches lack a little bit of confidence. They're really good at what they do and they follow through, highly analytical, and they're there every Monday at 2:00 and they're 5 minutes early, but they lack a little bit of, mojo, a little bit of, sales sometimes. Well, by limiting supply, this might give you that Steve Jobs type strut, that Michael Jordan type, Superman walk, where you'll, start owning that business coaching superstar that you are, and you got to bloody own it. But limiting your supply, I think, will help you do that. And Rhoda, I think recently we talked about category. Often businesses get hung up going head to head. So I'm just thinking framework here, right? Like creating a category. Often businesses get hung up on like going head to head, right? And like the common result there when you're going head to head and you're not differentiating is, guess what? Lower your prices, right? So by creating a category, it's not the easiest thing in the world. If done properly, it's a total game changer for your ability to do this supply and demand thing, like to create this frame. And to do it, though, it's going to go against the grain. It's going to go against, I think, natural instincts of you and your coaching client. You got to narrow your focus. And you really got to, kind of start something totally afresh that didn't exist. And again, FedEx, like overnight delivery, did not exist. I remember writing a long email. It was about the same time as Harley. There was a direction that I was thinking of going, where I was going to write, business case studies kind of thing. And I wrote one on Burton snowboards. Jake Burton, he basically created the sport of snowboarding, right? So again, I owned a hockey rink in a place where there was not, like, the sport of hockey didn't exist. And there were skating rinks, and I built a hockey rink. And everybody, one by one, and some pretty smart guys told me I was absolutely crazy, or we were absolutely crazy to build a hockey rink. And we were like, nah, no skating. We're just doing hockey. Like, everybody's doing birthday parties. We're like, nah, we're not doing birthday parties. Like, this seems incredibly lame. And if you're going to do a birthday, yeah, you could do a birthday party, but guess what? Everybody's playing hockey, and everybody's wearing a helmet. Everybody's carrying a stick. So that's what you want to do. Go for it. And we grew the demand. And by the way, short term, look like an idiot. Long term, the rink still exists today. In fact, a kid is playing, Nathan Walker is playing in the NHL playoffs right now for the St. Louis Blues, who played in my hockey rink, and I coached him. So anyways, growing demand. So instead of, we wanted to grow the sport of hockey. So we built a hockey rink where a hockey rink didn't exist. I don't know. That's category, if ever there was one? Maybe Domino's. You probably all heard that one, but like home delivered pizza wasn't really a niche before Domino's went and did it. And if it might have been getting done, but it wasn't like what you'd refer to as a category, which now, well and truly it is. Like PayPal, they created the online payment category. Apple, before, Apple, maybe shout out to BlackBerry, who kind of paved the way, but really Apple, before them, a cell phone was something that you sent texts and made phone calls on, right? Elon Musk and his electric cars, and now Lord knows what he's going to do with Twitter. We'll have to see. But your client doesn't need to be as ambitious as creating electric cars to create a category. They could do something a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to follow. Remember, like 15 years ago, I built the Done For You online business academy, which we still have today. I still have the academy. I built it a decade and a half ago, and it still exists today. Of course, it's been revamped and refined. And if you looked at it today and you looked at it 15 years ago, you'd have no idea that you were looking at the same thing. But, we created that little category. Now we invented software for business coaches and business consultants, right? And a lot of the elite of the elite coaches. I've seen some ads recently on Facebook of clients of ours who are running, spending a lot of money on Facebook, building pretty damn multi-million dollar, practices they're using our content. And by the way, that's totally fine. Like a lot of the Dan Kennedy Marketing Hall of Famers use our stuff. The bottom line is that you have seen a lot of our content out there, and it was because we white label all our stuff. It looks like it was, their stuff. You creating that white label solution is what we did in there. What can you do? What can your business owner do? What can the plumber? What can the chiropractor? What can the dentist? What can the butcher, baker, candlestick maker do? And the answer is you start thinking outside the box, and you might be blown away at what you can do for, again, the realtor, the mortgage broker, the insurance guys, or what have you. And there are a plethora of them in your local area. It doesn't matter where you are, but they are everywhere. Just help them think bigger, help them think smarter, right? Like, I think creating a category, Road Dog, is, it's not about working harder. It's about working smarter and kind of moving up the food chain. So that's what I'd say, Shoots. What do you think?
Well, I think you've actually neglected one, and that is another great way to do this in terms of creating a category is to create and promote positioning opposed to a category.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, another great way, I'd say, to get people talking about your coaching client or the business. Yeah, instead of creating the category, promoting the category, promoting the positioning. I've seen, like, a Volvo is the safest car in the world. That's what I mean, right? Coke is the real thing. And what are some other examples, Road Dog? Like Disneyland. What do they call it? Happiest place on earth. Is that it? BMW. The driving machine, the ultimate driving machine. Amazon is the world's most customer centric company. I'm not sure if they put out different messages at different times, but that, you know what I mean? That's been their catch cry for a long, long time. If you ever saw Jeff Bezos get interviewed over the last decade, you're going to hear that from him. Tony Robbins, the word mastery, you may or may not realize that, but Tony Robbins owns the word mastery. And then you see coaches all over the world promoting this, that, and the other mastery. And that's not even realizing it. And I have done it, by the way, and mastery right there. But he owns that word. He owns that positioning. And mastery, if you can remember, mastery is just that extra 2%, the extra 2%, the extra 2%, where, basically the highway is open. Like Zappos, I remember they shout out to Tony Shea, may he rest in peace. But what did he do? He wrote a book called Happiness. Deliver Happiness is what Zappos is all about. Again, multi-billion-dollar company. So quality is critical, but brands are built more on the perception than they are the actual quality. Like in blind taste tests, Pepsi absolutely destroyed Coke. Like, it wasn't even close. Some people don't know that, right? People didn't care and they still bought Coke. And then you go, like, why? And 100% Coke's positioning, they crushed them, right? And there's so many other like examples, like Toyota versus almost any other premium car. Like, there's no correlation between the equivalent of the Pepsi Coke challenge, like the completed test in the marketplace, and then the success of competing brands, right? Like Duracell and Energizer. Again, it's not, you just go with the one whose marketing you like the best, or the one that has, frankly, the better positioning in the specific store at eye level, right? So quality is kind of in the mind of the buyer when you do positioning properly, Road Dog. And if you want to build a powerful brand, you want to create the perception of quality more. Well, yeah, and you got to have a kick-ass product. You got to have a great product. Otherwise, none of this stuff's going to work. We know that, right? But the perception of quality in the mind of the ideal client, not everybody, not Tom, Dick, and Harry, the specific client, really drilling down. And so Road Dog, now I feel like I got to go granular because we're using all these big brands, or I'm naming all these, Zappos and BMW and Disneyland. Can the business owner relate? And it's like, is there anybody in your city that's like, the number one business coach? Road Dog and I, like in Kelowna, is there the Kelowna's number one business coach? And I dare say not. And you're coaching, Park City's number one plumber. Delaware's number one chiropractor. And these aren't, when I say that, probably a bad city, like you got to use, you want to be thinking 10, 25, 50, 100,000 population suburbs maybe for your client, as opposed to, New York City or LA. Very challenging, right? But the number one plumber, the number one chiropractor, the number one dry cleaner, the number one digital marketer, the number one business coach, the number one chiropractor, the number one, I said, whatever, dentist, whatever, the, number one roofing company, the fastest roofing company, the quickest turnaround, the cheapest, the best, stand out. So, the positioning, Road Dog, I think is super important. Like, again, you got a daycare, and it's like you turn it into an accelerated learning center. Frankly, that would be, that's got category, but it's also got positioning. Like, I just tell you, you create an accelerate. If I own a daycare locally, okay, call it an accelerated learning center, and make it into an accelerated learning center where our kids are going to go in and they're going to end up with grade 2 reading, writing, and arithmetic ability before they go into grade 1. I'm telling you, I am going to, if done properly, and I can market and I can create some signs to go out the front and a body of work. Don't expect everything to happen overnight. It might take you might take you a year, 18 months, 2 years, maybe 3 years to really get going, really get traction. But you absolutely crush that, right? Like, absolutely crush an accelerated learning center. And just about, you want examples of this, just go into your local city and see the school. Like, there'll be schools, right, where they teach you math, English, etc., right, clearly. And then there's private. So you got a free school, and then you got a private school, and then you got a private school that will teach baseball, and then you got a private school that does hockey, and then you got a private school that does dance, and you get a private school that does gymnastics, and see how much they charge. And it's like, the numbers, if you don't know already, and you might already have an idea if you got kids, but the numbers will just blow your mind. And again, at the end of the day, they could play hockey for the local team and go to school at the local free, the local school and then the local team, and save yourself a whole lot of money. But parents want to put their kids into, they want them to be elite. So they'll spend an absolute fortune on niche stuff like that. So anyways, yeah, good point, Road Dog. But the positioning, just think of your frame as like Volvo being the safest car in the world. I think that's the easiest one for everybody to get their head around. How can they, your coaching client? How can you do that? How can your coaching client do that? And I think you might find you'll have a lot of success, and your coaching client relationship will be easier and longer standing. So what do you think, Road Dog? Is that what you were thinking? Anything to add there?
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. So let's just wrap this up because I know we're going a bit long here today. This is like a recording. I say that every week, man. Like there has yet to be a show where I'm like, well, we're a little light on content today. That hasn't happened. But all right, real quick, what's one thing that, because I feel like we covered a lot. Like, man, like if you had to just pick one, what would you say somebody take out of today?
100%. The biggest, and it's, again, I mentioned it's something I've been thinking about. Supply and demand drive price. And I don't know that I have that completely worked out. It's kind of a rabbit hole in my own little private time. And maybe we can talk about this on the podcast in the future as I go a little deeper. But supply versus demand drives price, and I just think that there's magic in that statement. And the magic is that it's so counterintuitive. It comes so incredibly not naturally. That's why, and it's just so important. It's just, I've always said it, Road Dog, like when you get on the phone with somebody, and our coaches, like our clients that are listening to this, right? Be lots of them. Always talk, when you get somebody on the phone, you start the conversation with how busy you are. By, blessed, by the grace of God, I'm so busy, so grateful, so thankful. Holy smokes, careful what you wish for. Language like that, which doesn't make it sound like, you're sell Mortimer. Always that frame. Why? People want what they can't have. The end, right? The end. It's like high school dating, right? When you were in high school and you had a date, you had a girlfriend or you had a boyfriend, you were significantly more attractive to folks than suddenly you got dumped or you dumped them and suddenly you were single. The end. People want what they can't have. So supply versus demand, got to limit that supply. And then you subsequently you artificially or actually increase demand. And then the perceived demand is just dramatically goes up, which allows you to charge so much more. So again, it's group coaching. Doing that successfully will increase your ability and the speed at which and the perceived value and the actual amount that you can charge for your one-to-one coaching. Like that's it in a nutshell. It's, now I'm thinking Hollywood, right? Like again, Tom Cruise. Like how does Tom Cruise get? I got no idea what he gets paid for a movie, but let's assume it's 20 million. I don't know, probably in that, maybe more, maybe less. Got no idea, but like he's in demand. Do you know what I mean? And the supply is his time and effort. And if he's doing one movie, that means he can't do another one. And if the perception is, whether you realize it or not, it's that if Tom Cruise read this script and decided to do this movie, it must be really good. That's why he's, almost a guarantee at the box office, right? Will Smith used to be in that category, but
I was just going to say, I hear Will Smith is available.
Yeah. Oh, poor bugger, man. Again, and just poor bugger. Now we're going to get, so he was a boo-boo. I think we said this last week or the week before, but the guy's got literally, I don't know, 3 decades of keeping his nose clean, being a great role model, being amazing. He's the singer, he's the rapper, he's the actor. It's fun, you know what I mean? Funny as heck and everything. And then one boo-boo, and it was a big one. So anyways, he'll be fine. I think in the end, he'll do what he has to do to come back. But supply versus demand, right? Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman. I'm trying to think of, whoever else.
This will be interesting.
By the way, so those things,
the rabbit hole of who the top actors.
Right, because like Taylor Swift, if there's only one Taylor Swift and she needs to be on stage, she can only make money in one city. So one of the things that we gave, we've given this a few different times, but like there's the show in Vegas, Siegfried and Roy, right, with the Tigers. I think they both passed away now, the poor buggers, but they were in Vegas making all kinds of money, 200 million, whatever they were making per year, getting paid obscene amounts of money. But there, across the road, there was the Blue Man Group, right? 5 guys, that whatever number of guys painted themselves blue. And what ended up happening is they end up making 10 times as much money. And they had shows in Paris, they had shows in Singapore, they had shows in Australia and Vegas and wherever else, and all simultaneously on the same night. And they were making gobs and gobs of money. And the 5 guys or whatever number of guys that started the Blue Man Group were watching TV at home with their families with all of these Blue Man Groups running simultaneously around the world, right? So supply versus demand, right? That Tom Cruise, there's only one of him. So this is where he's got to charge big biggies to, you know what I mean? Be the man. But Tom Cruise is not the Blue Man Group. The guy's got no leverage whatsoever. That is not scalable. Growth. I talked to a buddy over a beer over the weekend about this. Growth and scale. People think they know what growth is and they think they know what scale is. They do not on average. Growth is when your revenues grow and your expenses come with it, hopefully at a lesser speed, right? But that's growth. So you grow and your expenses grow too. Scale is when your company grows and your expenses stay moderately the same. So think of Facebook. It doesn't matter how many, if you decide you're not on Facebook and you decide to join today, there's no hard costs fundamentally for Facebook to take you on. And if there is, it's negligible. They'd never feel it in a million years. That's scale. So growth and scale, Tom Cruise, supply versus demand, Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, Michael Jackson back in the day, whoever. Yes, I have horrific taste in music. But anyways, they got a legit supply and demand problem. What kind of business are you building? What kind of business is your client building? Thinking Blue Man Group versus Sigmund and Roy might have some value. So
didn't see that close. Didn't see are you Sigmund and Roy or Blue Man Group close. I didn't see this coming. So well done, Shoots. I didn't see that. Hey, by the way, for you to be, the viable, wanted guy in high school, is that why your girlfriends were always quote unquote from out of town? Is that what happened there?
How'd you know?
Oh yeah, no, I've got a girlfriend. She's what's his name? The brother in oh my god, anyways, I'm not gonna go down this rabbit hole. Napoleon Dynamite. You're like that dude. I've got a girlfriend. She's out of town.
Maybe a little. Maybe shoots. Maybe it worked. Maybe it worked.
Listen, bud. There it is. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Business Coaching Secrets and Dating Advice with the man on top of the hill, King Karl. And if you're not on the inside getting access to the pre-show, like seriously, we just pumped the pre-show up like crazy at the beginning of this. You might want to get on that because we're dropping bombs inside of that. And absolute gold nuggets. Visit focused.com and subscribe today. And again, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share, like, comment, follow, all those wonderful things. And of course, if more than anything, if you liked it, rate the episode, as we know that all the streaming services give a huge amount of weight towards that. So please leave us a review if you like what you heard. And that is it for another week. I cannot wait to see what rabbit holes we go down next week. We will see you in the next episode. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.